After several years of work, the Minister of Technical Secondary Education and Vocational Training and his counterpart proceeded on Thursday to launch the cultural classes. The new version of University Games came to an end on Saturday, the 4th of February in Savalu. The issuing of the attestation and certificate of residence is now the prerogative of the agents of the national agency. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to the 1 p.m. news edition with Hazel OGOIGBE, coming to you live and direct from Golfe AFRICA here in the city of Cotonou. Now to the news in detail, starting from the local scene. Now, living in Cotonou is becoming more and more difficult with expensive house rents. It is difficult for the average citizen to cope with these difficulties. Now, why is this the case? More information in the following commentary.
Living in Cotonou is becoming really difficult as the days go by with expensive rent. It is difficult for the average citizen to cope with these difficulties. The asphalting of the streets, the imposed street lighting, and general urbanization of Cotonou cities are major factors that influence the high cost of living. The high cost of living in Cotonou is the result of the modernization of Benin's economic capital, Cotonou, and the increased investment by the government of President Patrice Talon to make Cotonou the hub of West Africa. Indeed, for entrepreneurs, there's no question of living in Cotonou if one does not have adequate means to sustain oneself. The realities in Benin's major cities are not the same. The state should strengthen human capital through social actions. The ruler should put the best interest of the citizens at heart, says a computer scientist. The resumption of major works in the city and the settlement of foreigners are factors that contribute to the high cost of living in the metropolis, says a local councillor. According to some citizens, the rise in rent, the cost of living, the high cost of mobility, and many other aspects reinforce their assertion that states the fact that living in Cotonou is a daily and permanent struggle.
Away from that, crossing briefly to the news on the foreign scene. Now, Australia's Defense Department will strip its buildings of Chinese-made security cameras to ensure they are completely secure, stated the government on Thursday. Now, this follows similar moves in the United States as well as Britain, which has taken measures to stop government departments installing Chinese-made cameras at sensitive sites. Now, both countries have expressed fears that Chinese companies could be forced to share intelligence collected by the cameras with Beijing security services. Away from that, now crossing back to the local scene. After several years of work, the Minister of Technical Secondary Education and Vocational Training and his counterpart, the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Arts, proceeded on Friday, the 3rd of February to the official launch of the cultural classes. Now, 89 schools have been selected throughout the country for the pilot phase of this program. The event was hosted by the General Education College of OGOIGBE. The incubation period of this project, like a pregnancy, lasted several years. Finally, the vision was birthed and delivery finally took place on Friday, the 3rd of February 2023, to the delight of the students passionate about arts and culture. This project encapsulates the different activities related to cultural classes. The program was instituted by the Action Program of the government of President Patrice Talon, whose aim is to train students in several artistic and cultural disciplines. The 4 branches of arts concerned are plastic arts, dance, drama, and music. The program was well put together to add value to the lives of the students.
Les classes culturelles a été instituée par décret en 2018 et depuis le 8 juin dernier, donc le gouvernement a autorisé.
Cultural classes were instituted by a decree in 2018, and since the 8th of June, the government has authorized that at the start of 2022 to 2023 academic year, we should implement these cultural classes into school curriculum. It should be noted that there were several stages before we eventually accomplished this project on the 3rd of February 2023. First of all, there was the drafting of the curriculum, programs that will be incorporated. This was done with the participation of cultural actors who are trainers and teachers. These people belong to establishments that already teach arts and also resource persons well known in the art industry. So as I said earlier, this curriculum was drafted. After the drafted curriculum, we proceeded with the grouping to be able to Away from that, thousands of Twitter users on Wednesday reported problems using the platform as the Elon Musk-owned social network began letting paying users post tweets as long as 4,000 characters. Now, it said Twitter may not be working as expected for some of you, the company said in a tweet, and they also apologized for the troubles. Now, back to the local scene. The issuing of attestations and certificates of residence is now the prerogative of the agents of the National Agency for the Identification of Persons. Formerly issued by the districts or village chiefs, the neighborhood chiefs only play an intermediary role in the process. For information in the following commentary.
The residence certificate is now secure in Benin as a most civil status document. The information was welcomed with satisfaction by the population, which welcomes the initiative but is concerned nonetheless. The issuance of the new form of residence certificate now costs 2,500 francs CFA, with a distribution key of 500 francs to be disbursed at a level by the district chief, 1,000 francs of stamp duty for the town hall, and 1,000 francs for the ANIP account. However, it is not necessary in a case that includes an identity document issued by ANIP, including the CIP and the biometric identity card. The applicant is required to provide it when he or she has changed his or her place of residence without making the correction on the said document at the ANIP. The system looks quite simple. However, it's a different story with the hassle of issuing the document. With the new procedure, it is almost impossible to obtain a residence certificate in one day due to network problems and the unavailability of residence cards to be filled and registered with the chief of the district. In addition to the difficulties encountered by local authorities and the new procedure for issuing residence certificates, it should be noted that jobs have been lost. Most of the district chiefs have had to give up the services of their secretaries, who therefore no longer have a place in the system. In view of the above, it is important that local authorities are more involved in the new procedure for issuing residence certificates. Formerly costing 1,000 francs CFA, the residence certificate now costs 2,500 francs CFA in Benin and involves more hassle for those who request it. As a result, the delay in issuing this document suffers from a procedure that must be reduced as much as possible so that applicants are not penalized at the end.
Crossing briefly to Nigeria, a letter purporting the resignation of the Sokoto State Deputy Governor Manin Dan Iya from the People's Democratic Party, the major opposition party in Nigeria, surfaced online, sparking reactions. Now, Indian verified letter addressed to the ward chairman, Kwara local government area, and dated the 8th of February. The deputy governor thanked the party for the opportunity to serve. The letter read, "I write to notify you of the withdrawal of my membership from the People's Democratic Party, taking effect from the 8th of February 2023. Now back to the local scene. The new version of the University Games came to an end on Saturday, the 4th of February in Savalu. Now, the University of Abomey-Calavi was remarkably distinguished among private and public entities during this event. For information in the following report. The 9th edition of the Benin University Games was held in Savalu. The grand finale of the football match closed the event in the afternoon in the hills of Savalu on Saturday, the 4th of February 2023. The event was graced by the presence of the Minister of Sports, Osbal Homake, the Prefect of Kolen, the King of Savalu, and other dignitaries. At the end of this edition, the Minister of Sports and the Director General of the Beninese Office of School and University Sports were satisfied at the end result of the 9th edition of the Benin University Games.
Je suis heureux. Je veux remercier toutes les universités publiques et privées qui ont participé à cette belle édition des Jeux universitaires du Bénin.
I am happy. I want to thank all the public and private universities that participated in this beautiful edition of the University Games in Benin. I would like to thank each of the athletes, the organizing committee, and the press for all the excitement surrounding this edition. You can see it yourself, people are very happy. The students came from everywhere and are happy, each one for his team. For the men and women's team, this is our way of consecrating the renaissance of the university sports, and really, I want to say thank you to everybody. 32 public and private university entities in Benin Republic met in Savalu to celebrate sports. They challenged each other in 4 different sports segments. In athletics, there was the shot put section, the high jump and the long jump, the men's 400-meter race and the women's 100-meter race. There was also handball and basketball, where each university present was represented in both the women and men events. The prefect of Colin was happy with this competition organized in his department.
Ici à Savalu, vous avez vu depuis le 29.
Here in Savalu, you have seen since the 29th of January until the 4th of February, you've experienced intense moments of joy and happiness. You have seen the quality of the athletes who have given us maximum pleasure. I'm very happy because, as I said in the beginning, that everything would go according to plan, and everything did go according to plan. When you organize this kind of competition and there is no casualty, it is the authority that is excited about this development. So I'm very happy. I thank the organizers, the athletes who give us maximum pleasure, and I thank the whole Department of Calling and the whole of Benin Republic. At the end of a hard-fought grand finale, the Faculty of Technical Sciences of the University of Abonnez-vous beat the École Supérieure d'Administration et d'Économie with a narrow score of 1-0, a result that qualified the University of Abonnez-vous team as the football champion.
Ghana is optimistic about concluding the ongoing negotiations with the International Monetary Fund. Now, to get the support of the fund by March, according to local news reports, the issues surrounding the domestic debt exchange program. One of the requirements has been virtually concluded, paving the way for the country to go the full hog.
Ghana is optimistic about concluding the ongoing negotiation with the International Monetary Fund to get the support of the fund by March. According to local news reports, the issues surrounding the domestic debt exchange program, one of the requirements, has been virtually concluded, paving the way for Ghana to go the full hog. President Nana Akufo-Addo gave this assurance when he held discussions with the visiting German Federal Minister of Finance, Christian Lindner, last Friday at the Jubilee House in Accra. He said, the main content of the government includes the process of concluding talks with the International Monetary Fund, as well as the specific assistance that would help Ghana fast-track the process of its economic recovery. Germany's finance minister was in Ghana for bilateral talks with Ghanaian government and the business communities, and also to assure Ghana of Germany's support to help Ghana get out of its current economic challenges. Mr. Lindner said the delegation was in the country because, although they saw economic challenges in Ghana, they believed they could be turned into opportunities for bilateral trade. After months of speculation, Ghana on the 1st of July 2022 announced that it was going to the International Monetary Fund to seek support. Subsequently, the government of Ghana in December 2022 reached a staff-level agreement with the fund as part of processes leading to bailout. President Nana Akufo-Addo welcomed the pledge by Germany to help the country overcome its current economic challenges and appealed to the German government to lend its support in that direction.
South Africa is facing a major electricity crisis, sometimes with no power for almost 6 hours a day. South Africa is also affecting small business owners struggling to survive and forced to make hard choices. Now, the power outage in South Africa, which has lasted for more than 200 days since last year, has piled misery on 60 million South Africans struggling with high unemployment, poverty, and rising cost of living in South Africa. Still on the African scene now, today at scene in Cameroon, the visual artist Jean-Michel Desake wants to use his art to heal the world of the crisis that affects it. Now, the artist develops an aesthetic form that he has named Mudiki, a work that Jean-Michel Desake finds already very beautiful, not only on the form, but also for the message the artwork carries.
In Cameroon, the visual artist Jean-Michel Desake wants to use his art to heal the world of the crisis that affected it. The artist develops an aesthetic form that he has named Modiki.
This is a symbol of the electrocardiogram, the symbol of life. It is the symbol of love. As an element of creation, we decided to use the license plate because the whole existence of man is punctuated and regulated by this, regulated by the numbers.
In his laboratory located in the 4th district of the city of Yaoundé, Jean-Michel Desake and his collaborators combine materials of various kinds and give them a second life in the form of a work of art. The large work is a gigantic canvas that needs several arms to be deployed.
That we are going to assemble on the big work that is outside.
A work that Jean-Michel Desake finds already very beautiful, not only on the form but also for the message it carries.
This is Dibala to speak of the sacred house. Through this work, Dibala, I invite all the peoples of humanity to sit down on a table and to see how we can give back to the human being his soul. In this laboratory, which at first glance does not seem to look like what you would expect, works are produced that are exhibited in galleries in the country and even beyond its borders.
The world has discovered this self-taught promoter of picture sculpture, which he defines as a point of intersection between different forms of plastic art.
What I am interested in this work of assembly is the association that he makes between his reference point of the traditional Sawa culture and this artistic practice that is very anchored in daily life, in the triviality. The collection of waste, of elements that have been abandoned by city dwellers.
In his home, which looks like a small museum, he's currently preparing an exhibition scheduled for February 2023 at the French Institute of Cameroon, Yaoundé branch.
Crossing to the news in brief, Médecins Sans Frontières has suspended its operation in an area of northwestern Burkina Faso, where armed assailants killed 2 of its employees on Wednesday, the medical charity said in a statement. Now, 2 Burkina Faso nationals, the driver and a logistics supervisor aged 39 and 34 respectively, were killed, stated the Médecins Sans Frontières. Away from that, African leaders expressing condolences and solidarity with Turkey and Syria after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit parts of the 2 countries on Monday, leading to a loss of more than 5,000 lives. More information in the following commentary. African leaders expressing condolences and solidarity with Turkey and Syria after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit parts of the 2 countries on Monday. The leaders included the President of Ethiopia, South Africa, Nigeria, Senegal, Somalia, Burundi, and Gambia. Also, the African Union chairperson Moussa Faki Mahamat, in a tweet, welcomed the global outpouring of support and solidarity. Their condolences came as dozens of nations and organizations offered to help with rescue efforts in southern Turkey and northern Syria after Monday's earthquake that has already killed over 5,000 people. As part of aid from Africa, Algeria sent an 89-member civil protection team to Turkey and an 85-member one to Syria to help in the rescue efforts, alongside 210 tons of humanitarian aid for both countries. President Kais Saied of Tunisia, on his part, ordered humanitarian aid for both Turkey and Syria, including 14 tons of blankets and food. Saied also appealed for volunteer medics to be flown out on Tunisian military aircraft, stated officials. The European Union has already mobilized rapidly. It says more than 30 search and rescue or medical teams are on their way to Turkey. This would mean more than 1,200 rescue workers heading to the affected areas and 70 detection dogs. Russian President Vladimir Putin also said he was sending rescue workers to both countries after talks with counterparts Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, the United States said it was committed to helping people on both sides of the Turkish-Syrian border, but Washington ruled out dealing directly with the Syrian government. Some 15 other countries, including Ukraine, have also pledged aid, as the search for survivors in the rubble continues. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated, "Our teams are on the ground accessing the needs and providing assistance. We count on the international community to help the thousands of families hit by this disaster, many of whom were already in dire need of humanitarian aid in areas where access is a challenge." Crossing over to the United States of America, President Joe Biden spoke directly to the American people on a divided Congress on Tuesday evening. Rising tensions with China and the lingering war in Ukraine were the main foreign policy issues.
As President Joe Biden spoke to a joint session of Congress Tuesday evening on the State of the Nation, tensions with China loomed large after a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon captured the attention of both lawmakers and ordinary Americans. Without mentioning the balloon specifically, Biden sought to reassure Americans while sending this message to China.
I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world, but make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did.
On Saturday, a U.S. fighter jet shot down the balloon in midair over the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. China has called the U.S. shooting down of the balloon unacceptable and an overreaction. Some Republicans criticized Biden for not ordering the balloon shot down earlier as it traversed the country. They may be looking for a tougher stance on China. Michael Kugelman of the Wilson Center told VOA.
So he was not taking a forceful hawkish position. He was leaving open some space for conciliation. And I really don't think those members of Congress that want a more hardline stand would have been satisfied with what he said tonight.
Russia's war against Ukraine was also featured in Biden's address. The U.S. has committed more than $27 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. Biden said Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion 1 year ago was a test that America passed.
We united NATO. We built a global coalition. We stood against Putin's aggression. We stood with the Ukrainian people. Tonight, we're once again joined by Ukraine's ambassador to the United States. She represents not just her nation, but the courage of her people.
Some Republicans have been skeptical of military aid to Ukraine, but that was not the case when Republicans in the chamber, including House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, appeared to strongly support Biden's remarks.
I have to say, I saw a lot more support coming from the Republican side of the aisle when he was speaking about Ukraine, particularly at the moment when he said, "We are in it as long as it takes." This is something that we have heard the Republican Party push back on, specifically saying that there wasn't a blank check for Ukraine.
Apart from the war in Ukraine and a long-planned pivot to Asia, President Biden is planning for the first visit to sub-Saharan Africa by an American president since 2015.
Good idea, viewers. You're still tuned in to Golfe Africa and it's still the 1 p.m. news. This is the newspaper review segment. Now, time is running, so I'm going to be very, very, very quick. Now, the top story trending on the pages of the Guardian Post reads, Senatorial election, mighty SDF at the mercy of Biya. And the story says it will take the head of state generosity for SDF to have even a single appointed senator at the upper house of parliament. Now, below that story, talking about combating cybersecurity, P&T ministers urges youth to lead responsible social media use crusade. And still talking about, let's talk about Nigerian presidency. Article heads for landslide victory in northern states after announcing enticing projects. Fingers crossed, considering the fact that the election is just weeks away. Now, hike in transport fare imminent, increase in fuel prices. I talked about the fact that once there's an increase in the price of fuel in Nigeria, is inadvertently going to have a negative effect in other African countries because Nigeria supplies fuel to a whole number of African countries. Now, I'm moving away from that, crossing over to the pages of The Punch, Nigeria. Now, on the pages of The Punch, Nigeria, talking about the new Naira note on the pages of The Punch, Nigeria. Now, on the new Naira note, it says World Bank and the International Monetary Fund won the Central Bank of Nigeria, and Supreme Court stops Friday deadline. There was supposed to be a deadline on Friday saying if you don't have the new Naira notes, your old Naira notes would be useless. But then the Supreme Court has given a new order saying that doesn't stand. And below that story, shortage of new notes has caused hardships, disrupted trades and payments, says the International Monetary Fund. And still on that story, it says protest rocks Abuja as Tinubu and El-Rufai hail judgment, and Malami asks court to dismiss suit. Above that story, let's scroll it down a bit. All right, now let's talk about fuel. Still on the pages of The Punch, it says 195 naira per litre impossible, marketers insist. Still on the pages of The Punch, it says 900 NNPCL stations to serve INEX polling booths, and IK Ekweremadu saying I did not offer to buy kidney. Ekweremadu tells United Kingdom Court on the pages of The Punch, Nigeria. IK Ekweremadu is facing charges of trying to buy kidney and luring a Nigerian into the United Kingdom to give his sick daughter a kidney. And he is defending himself and speaking on the pages of The Punch that he is innocent. He did no such thing. Now, away from The Punch, Nigeria, crossing over to The Nation, Malawi. On The Nation, Malawi, the story reads, court rebuffs state on Chizuma. And still on the pages of The Nation, it says, government pushes back on USA, vows not to cede sovereignty and independence of the institutions, on the pages of The Nation, Malawi. Still on The Nation, Malawi, state Chizuma tussle worry the European Union, on the pages of The Nation. And don't be a hindrance, Zamba tells board, on the pages of The Nation, Malawi. Now, if you know you're curious about the power tussle that is happening in Malawi with the United States of America, then you could read more on the pages of The Nation, Malawi. Away from The Nation, Malawi, let's see the stories that are making the rounds on the front page. Liberia. Now, on the front page, Liberia, as government burns 37 million worth of narcotics, lawmakers give assurance of witness protection law protecting whistleblowers of drug trade, on the pages of the front page. Now, still on the front page, we're just going to be zooming a bit to be able to see what the story really says. Now, on the pages of the front page, it says, authorities admit to unwholesome medicine in Liberia despite news of 77 children dying from tainted medicine in Gambia. Fake drugs in Liberia, that is on the pages of the front page. And the last story I'll be taking says, LPDP dilemma. If you know you're curious about that story, you could check the pages of the front page. Now, it's very important that a whistleblower should be protected, because a whistleblower just wants to make sure that corruption reduces to the barest minimum, and he should not be indicted when he calls or exposes people that are doing things negatively in his country. Now, moving away from that, let's see what's happening on the pages of The Citizen, Tanzania. Now, on The Citizen, Tanzania, it says, meet standards to operate government, tells Elon Musk. Now, the government wants the owner of the broadband service provider SpaceX, Elon Musk, to meet all the requirements before it is allowed to roll out in Tanzania, with the initial deployment date set to be within the first quarter of 2023. Now, still on the Citizen Tanzania, it says government faulted for failing to table amended media bill. And this last story says NSSF yet to find a buyer for its multi-million-dollar project. And our dear viewers, this is where I'm going to be concluding today's edition of the African Newspaper Review, coming to you live and direct on Golfe TV Africa. I'm also going to be ending today's news edition. Thanks for tuning in. I am Hazel OGOIGBE. Enjoy the rest of your day.